The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to the People's View.
Hello and welcome, Chris Williams, who's running for mayor. Chris, now you're in the runoffs on the race for mayor. How's things going out there?
Well, we're feeling pretty good. We're down to 3 weeks left.
Yeah.
By the time this airs, we'll probably be 2 to 3 weeks left here. So this is literally the home stretch where everything just really gets intense for these final days leading up to November 3rd.
Yeah.
And we've come a long way since January
Yeah.
when Mayor Lozo announced that she was not going to run again. So thinking back, to January 10 months ago to where we are today, it's a world of difference between the starting point and where we are today.
Getting to know a lot more voters, I assume, huh?
Absolutely. At last count, I had knocked on 3,700 doors.
Uh-huh.
We are up to, I think, 47 house parties across the city. And by the time this airs, I think we still have another 10 to go. And Saturdays and Sundays, we're actually doubling up on house parties. So we're like starting with a morning coffee at 10 a.m.,
I see.
going to a 1 o'clock afternoon house party, and then we're ending the evening with another house party.
Oh, boy.
So yeah, even these final days, we are squeezing in every
Everything.
opportunity that we can
Well,
to
that's
meet
good
as
that
many
you get out
voters.
to vote. Are you learning anything that you didn't know before?
There's not really in terms of new issues, but what I am really intrigued by is the prevalence of certain issues. Number one on everyone's minds, it doesn't matter if you are a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, a regular voter, or someone who doesn't really vote that often. First and foremost, people want to know, what are you going to do about our taxes here in the city? Almost every door I knock on, the person owns that home, and so they watch their tax bill every year just creep up, some years better than others, and they're very worried about what the next mayor is going to do. Our current mayor, I think, has done a terrific job of keeping a very tight fist on spending. I give a lot of kudos to Donna Lee for her ability within a very, very tough economic time to be able to manage the budget as well as she has. And I think a lot of people are wondering, the next mayor, between me and my opponent, which of us is going to be able to keep that tight management on the city budget. Another issue that I hear a lot is the heroin epidemic. When I started this campaign, I knew that the abuse of heroin was on the rise, and this was becoming an increasing concern. Even I was surprised, though, by how many times the question of what we can do to stem that rising tide of heroin abuse arises from people on their doorstep, if I'm knocking on their door, or people at house parties. So those are the two, I would say, are the ones that I hear the most out there. But far and above, people want to know, if my tax bill comes out, what are you going to do as the next mayor to make sure that spending is in check, like what Donna Lee has done for the past 8 years?
So what are you going to do?
Well, I think that there are basically two options. When a mayor, no matter what your city is, it doesn't matter if you're a small city like Nashua or a large city like Boston, you basically have two options in front of you. If you want to bring in tax revenue that can then be used to fund whatever your priorities are. Option one is you can raise the tax rate in the city, which means all of us end up paying higher tax bills. You can raise the fees for vehicle registration, for your water sewage fee, etc., and then use those revenues. So that's option one. Option two, you actually bring more taxpayers into Nashua, added to the people that are already here. And by doing so, you're increasing the tax base. So rather than increasing the tax rate, which all of us pay as individuals, you're actually increasing the base of people who are paying into those property taxes. Between the two options, Jim, my opponent, has a pretty clear record in the 80s when he was the mayor of preferring option one. I'm not a big fan of option one. I respect that decision by him. I respect that approach, but it's not the approach I like. The one I like is option two. Rather than doing what Jim did, which is increase our taxes every year, let's actually bring more people into Nashua, expand that tax base. And by doing so, you and I as property owners can actually keep our spending, the city's spending, in check because we're bringing more taxpayers in. And by the way, when I say bring new taxpayers in, I'm not necessarily saying let's build a bunch of new houses and bring new residents into the city. What I'm saying is let's bring more companies into Nashua. The average business that owns property in Nashua, they pay 10 times the amount of property tax revenue that you and I pay as average homeowners. So it doesn't take me too much thinking to realize that the winning strategy for bringing the tax base into line with where our spending priorities need to be is to bring businesses in. And when you do that, then you're bringing more tax revenue into the city. So again, Jim has a really good record that you can look at of raising the tax rate, which is option one. What I'm saying is that's a nice option, but let's look at option two. Let's actually increase the number of taxpayers into the city.
Do you think the new Board of Aldermen will go along with your approach if you're elected, or will they go along with a tax raising process, the other one that you don't recommend?
I think a lot of the aldermen and the candidates for aldermen who I'm talking with out there strongly prefer option two. There aren't too many people out there who wake up in the morning and say, what can we do today to raise our taxes? And certainly that's not my preferred approach. And I think most of the aldermen, again, those who are already on the board and those who are looking to come onto the board, I think most of them would like to find another way to bring in tax revenue so that we don't have to face that decision of how high are we going to have to increase the tax rate.
Okay. And you haven't considered the other alternative of making the operation of the city more effective, more...
Yep, so when I say there are two options for increasing tax revenue, those are the two options. What you're describing is an option for actually trying to keep a lid on the current spending itself. So you've got one option over here, which is let's control spending, let's find ways to streamline services and costs. And then you have the other two options in terms of how you actually bring more revenue in. So again, what you're describing is rather than thinking about raising revenue, let's figure out how we manage the revenue that we have.
Well, you might mix a little bit to this too.
Absolutely, and I think there's a hybrid approach that you can take. It's been a while since the city did a full citywide audit of its departments and operations. That's certainly something I would be very interested in doing. To me, you know, private companies do it all the time. Organizations do it all the time. In the private sector, why not, you know, look at a citywide
Public sector,
audit?
they hardly ever do it.
Yeah, so, and I think that's something.
I'm talking on the state level.
Exactly,
as well
on
as
a state
local.
level too.
Yeah.
I think that's something we could look at because I'm willing to bet there are some efficiencies to be found there if we were to undertake that sort of a citywide audit. It's been a long, long time since we've undertaken that sort of an effort, and I'd certainly be willing to look into that.
I only raised the issue because of what the school board's doing now, looking at the janitor for the maintenance. Is that going to be an in-house or an out-of-house type of job? I mean, there's some kind of, there's pros and cons on that, but I'm sure if you do an audit and you look at everything, and maybe there are some efficiencies that you could put into it. So, and I look forward to seeing how you would handle that.
Absolutely. It can be a hybrid approach. It's not all about trying to increase tax revenue. It's also, you know, making sure that we are managing our spending as well as we can and as well as we should. Again, I think Donna Lee did a very good job of that in the past 8 years.
In general, I would agree with you, but it's also at the state level they have to do a lot of that.
Absolutely. So maybe we can get our gubernatorial candidates in to talk about the state level audit.
Let's bring that other thing up that you mentioned is of high interest to the people you've been talking to, the drug problem.
Yes.
How would you progress that with that?
There are two major approaches that I want to take. The number one approach, the first approach is prevention. The second approach is the treatment of those who are currently suffering from the addiction. What I want to do first is make sure that we are actually doing everything in our power to get the drugs off of our streets. We are a small enough city that our police department has a pretty good handle on which intersections, which neighborhoods are the ones where most of the activity is taking place. And you've probably seen in recent days some very good newspaper stories where the police have taken action and have been able to bring some of these guys in to custody. I want to give the police more resources to be able to do that. The heroin abuse and the drug epidemic is the single biggest threat facing our city over the next 10 years. If we don't get a handle on who is peddling the drugs, who is selling it, who is putting that out onto our streets, then we're going to continue seeing this slow slide. So number one, I want to make sure that we're giving our police the resources and that they know they have a mayor who's going to be on the front line with them, helping to say to the drug dealers that Nashua is closed for business. You can go to any other city in New England and sell your drugs but Nashua. We're going to make it such a living hell for you here in our city that you're going to find it easier to do it somewhere else and not come to Nashua. So that's number one. Tell the drug dealers that we're closed for business. Number two, then let's start really focusing on the treatment as well. I don't know of any single person who ever woke up one morning and said, you know what, I'm going to throw my life away. I'm going to try drugs and get addicted and see just how bad I can get. I don't know one single person who has ever said that. Maybe they're out there. But I bet a whole lot more people out there who find themselves in a situation where they're wrestling with heroin or painkillers, I bet they found themselves in a very slow creep, finding them just day by day, step by step, not realizing the situation they were getting into. I think if we can help remove the stigma from addiction and let them know we want to help them, we want to get them back up on their feet again, then we might be able to make a dent in this issue. We have really good programs already in place here in Nashua. If you haven't heard of our drug court program, I would encourage you and any of our viewers on any Monday afternoon, go to our Superior Court and sit in there and watch the people who are going through our drug court. It's open to the public. So from 2 to 4 p.m. every Monday on Spring Street, you can walk into the courthouse and sit there and watch each of these people who were arrested for a drug-related crime. And rather than simply throwing them into jail, throwing them into prison, we are giving them an opportunity to rehabilitate themselves by going through this drug court program. It's a really neat initiative that we're lucky to have here in Nashua. We currently have over 20 people who are on drugs or who were arrested for a drug-related crime who are going through this program and helping to make themselves better. Judge Coburn is the justice from the Superior Court who oversees this program. And I've sat in on a session for myself just to see her in action. And it's really neat to watch each of these people come up one at a time every Monday and report out to her on what they've been doing.
So it's not just the initial meeting with the
Correct.
judge, it's a follow-up. And
every week, yep. Some of them go through this program for 10 to 12 weeks. Others are going through it, it might be 6 to 8 months before you finally graduate out of the program. But the point is, every week you are held accountable. You have to go in and say, here is what I did, Judge Coburn, this week to help improve myself. And each week they're given a specific set of tasks and assignments that they have to check off. And at the session each Monday, if you haven't checked off those items, she will literally put handcuffs on you on the spot and send you right back to jail. I've seen it for myself. Out of the session that I sat in on, 4 of the people did not complete their assignments, and she sent them right back into jail. The other 18 did achieve their assignments, and they got to graduate to the next level of this program and get one step closer to getting themselves better and back up on their feet again. That sort of a program is incredibly beneficial to our community because it gets to the root of the problem. Rather than arresting ourselves out of this issue, it says we want to help you get better, put your life back together, and when you get to the end of this program, we're going to help you get a job. We're going to help make sure you've got a good place to live so that you don't find yourself right back where you started. What I'd like to do as the mayor is help bring more attention to that program and get more companies engaged in that program. Because what that program needs is job opportunities. It needs housing options to help these people get into a better life situation. It needs little incentives to help encourage these people each week as they finish their assignments. Give them a little reward. Whether it be a $50 gift certificate, to a local restaurant, or even a $10 gift card to Dunkin' Donuts, little rewards along the way. So that is a program that's already working well, in which I think we could really better promote and build out here. They just got a really great grant here from the federal government that's going to help to continue that program for another couple of years. And I want to make sure that we can not just keep it going for a couple of years, but even make that a permanent program until we've really started to address this issue. There are other best practices around other communities that we can also modify and bring here to Nashua. We don't have to simply recreate the wheel when it comes to treating drug abuse. There are programs in Gloucester, Massachusetts. There are programs in Laconia, New Hampshire that I have looked into and really thought that if we could modify programs in those two communities and bring them here, then we have a chance, once again, to start doing something about this issue without simply throwing a lot of tax dollars at it, without simply trying to arrest everyone who's on drugs and thinking that's going to solve our problem. Instead, let's bring some approaches from other communities that are working, bring them here to Nashua, and then take the programs like that drug court program and help to expand them as well.
Can you elaborate on one of those two
Absolutely.
places?
Yeah, so the one
Just
in
give us an
Gloucester,
example.
yeah, the program in Gloucester, Mass, it's called the Angel program. Under that program, if you are an addict, if you are high on something or you're coming down off of something, you can walk in to the Gloucester Police Department. Rather than them arresting you and putting you into a holding cell, they'll confiscate any materials that you have on you, and then they'll call one of their community volunteers who are called angels. These community volunteers are people who work and live in the community. They're not police officers. They're not healthcare professionals. They're just your average run-of-the-mill citizens, and they volunteered their time as an angel to be part of this program. So the police will call on their list, they'll call one of these angels. It might be 3 in the morning, it might be 3 in the afternoon, but that angel will come to the police department. He or she will pick up that addict who walked in to the police department and then take them to a local treatment center and put them right in to a resource that can actually help them start to get back up on their feet again. There's no better time to help someone who is addicted than when they're asking for it. And it's not very often that they're asking for it. So this program, when they're coming into the department, they're asking for help.
Sure.
So rather than saying, no, we're going to throw you in jail instead, we're saying, yes,
Okay.
How can we help you? Let's get someone to come in and take you to a local treatment center. That's sort of a program I'd like to modify and bring here to Nashua. So that's an example of a program that's already in existence and is showing some success in another community.
Do we have enough of those treatment centers here in Nashua?
Not yet. I don't think we have enough treatment centers statewide. There are some changes being made to help alleviate that. For example, the governor just announced, I think it was last week, that there's a certain permitting process for treatment centers where they were required to have 165 square feet of space per bed. We've reduced that down, I think, to 120 square feet of space. That helps, take the existing treatment centers and allow them to fit more beds into those particular facilities. So things like that are happening right now.
Well,
but at the end of the day, we need more treatment centers.
Well, I know in our budget that we approved up there was a lot of money for drug treatment as well as other kinds of treatment for disabled people. And it was a shame that we had to wait 3 months to implement that.
Yeah.
But hopefully that would help you in your plans.
Yes.
It's something. Let me ask you one other question, though. One of the things that the legislature is debating is recreational marijuana. What's your stance on that? Because, I can see personally marijuana for people who need it medically. But I'm not so sure I'd go along with the recreational.
Yeah, I wrestle with this one. I come from a military family. My grandfather was a police chief back in our hometown, back in the South. This one I really wrestle with, and I'm glad I'm not running for governor because that's a little bit more of a statewide issue than a local city issue. But I really would struggle, with legalizing marijuana here in New Hampshire and in Nashua. When we're struggling with something like heroin abuse and opioid abuse,
that's a bigger thing. Yeah,
it is. So to be saying on one side, drugs are tearing families apart and tearing lives apart, and then on the other side we're saying, but it's okay to use marijuana.
A little bit, yeah.
I really wrestle with the message.
And so, like, you can drink beer, but stay away from the hard stuff.
Right. Yeah.
In a way.
Yep.
Anyway, let me switch gears in the last part of the show here and talk about your ideas for branding New Hampshire, or branding Nashua rather, And we'll also talk about the rail program that I know you favor.
Yeah, some of the viewers might be aware of an initiative that I worked with the city on about 2 years ago now to rebrand the city of Nashua and the business community in a fashion that would allow the Chamber of Commerce and the city to partner together and each be promoting Nashua in the same way. That initiative is known as the Dare to Begin initiative. That was the brand that we came out with about 2 years ago now. And the message behind that brand, Dare to Begin, the message behind that is that here in Nashua, you can come here to our city and start a new chapter in your life. If you're a young professional, you can come here and begin a new career. You can begin a family here. You can buy your first home and find Nashua as a great place to do that. If you are looking to start a company and begin a new business venture, Nashua should be the home for you to consider. If you're looking to start your retirement and begin, the enjoying of your life, then we want you to choose Nashua as well. And overarching all of that, we want people to know that you can take a chance here in Nashua and be able to succeed. So that initiative, that message of daring to begin a new chapter, whether it be personally or professionally, and daring to succeed, which was the supplement brand that the Chamber of Commerce used, those are very positive messages that really, in my opinion, promote the best of what Nashua has to offer. I'm very proud of that brand, and should I be the mayor over the next 4 years, you will see me actively out there promoting that brand, because when you're talking to businesses and saying, come to Nashua, there's no better message to be able to share with them than to say, Nashua is the place where you can take a chance. And you're going to have resources at City Hall that are going to support you in taking that chance and beginning a new chapter, whether it be through the launch of a company or taking a job, buying a home here in our community. I think it's a great brand for us. Unfortunately, some of our aldermen, sort of poo-pooed, the idea and really haven't gotten behind it. But I know we're going to have new aldermen next year, and I think we're going to have some aldermen who are willing to work with me on making that a great brand and an effective brand for us.
It sort of never took off, really, on that approach. But I know you know of one of the candidates for alderman, or two of the candidates, who called this the opportunity to use our rivers and parks as an attraction. What do you think about that? Because you got a waterway here that's sort of from one end to the other, including the Merrimack River.
Yes.
That leaves a wonderful opportunity.
There's a gentleman here in Nashua named Gene Porter. Gene lives up in the North End. He's a retiree here in the city who has a great background in the defense industry down in Washington. And he currently is very active on a city level as a member of one of our commissions here, or committees that oversee our waterways within the city. He took me out on his boat. He's got a great little antique boat that he took me out on the river about 2 months ago now. And he showed me right up close and personal just how terrific our rivers are for Nashua. And he really impressed upon me the message that the riverways, the waterways here in our city are terrific opportunities for us that are very much underused right now. And I took that message to heart. Even before he and I went out on his boat, I had already been talking about the downtown waterfront and what we could be doing to really take advantage of the Nashua River, the way it runs right through the heart of our downtown. So having that boat ride with Gene really reinforced some of my opinions on how we should be taking better advantage of our waterfront, not just in the downtown, but all through the city of Nashua, the way the Nashua River winds through the city, east to west or west to east, and then the Merrimack River, coming down from Manchester. So I'd like to explore, the opportunity for putting, boat docks, down here in Nashua more than what we have today, and then really focusing on revitalizing that waterfront in our downtown and using it as an opportunity to serve as a magnet for people who want to visit and come in and find other activities to do in downtown, in addition to simply having a nice dinner, which you can already do, or experiencing a nice boutique shop, which you can currently do in Nashua. Let's give them other activities as well, and the waterfront is a key.
Well, you've seen what they've done down in Lowell. They've really developed that area.
Absolutely have. Yep.
Regattas on the river. They have canal trips.
Yep.
And,
in fact, last August, I did a midnight kayak ride
Oh, really?
down the Merrimack River in Lowell.
Uh-huh.
It's put on by the UMass Lowell
Oh.
system there. They have a boating club,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and on nights where there's a full moon, they will do a
Oh, really?
midnight kayak ride right
Ah.
down the Merrimack River through the historic Lowell Mill Yard.
Yeah.
We can be doing that very same sort of thing here in Nashua. Our river cuts right through our mill yard, right through our downtown, just like Lowell. We also can be taking advantage of our waterfront to do concerts and other festivals
That's what they
on the
do there
waterfront,
now.
which is
Yeah.
what they do down in Lowell. If you've ever been down to the summer concert
Yeah,
series in Lowell, that's where they hold it. So we can do this here in Nashua, but you need someone at City Hall who
That has that
takes
vision.
the time to think about these things.
Yeah.
And being a fairly young professional myself, I know what today's people are looking for and what they want to do in terms of nightlife and weekend activities and family-friendly things that you can do in our downtown beyond just finding a nice restaurant or a nice boutique shop.
They still have that whitewater rafting on the Concord River where it comes in at Lowell?
Ooh, I don't know that, but I'll have to look into that one
Yeah,
and see.
but that's a section they used to run.
Okay.
It's a small section, so if they do it twice to give
Okay.
you, because
Okay.
it's not that long.
Okay,
but,
I'll have to look into that one.
It's right near downtown, too.
Okay.
But I think that's something we should take advantage of. And
Yeah.
You've probably heard of what they've done in San Antonio. And,
Oh,
you
I know San Antonio very well.
In 1960, it was a dump.
It was something no one wanted to be around.
Right.
And now the beautiful waterfront there.
Right.
They call it the Riverwalk, and I've actually taken the boat rides myself up and down the Riverwalk in
too,
San
yeah.
Antonio. Now, granted, that's a much bigger
Yeah, that's
stretch
right.
of river than what we have in Nashua. But your point is well taken. We can do better things
Well,
with our
I
waterfront.
brought up the problem in 1960. A good section of what is now developed was slum.
Yeah.
They had a theater there that on one side of the river, which had some, grandstand seats, let's say, and the show was on the other side of the river. But around that was terrible.
Yeah.
But now it's part of the beautiful part of the city.
It is. Yeah, the waterfront is key to any community's potential for economic and community development, and being able to attract people to your city. And we have that opportunity here in front of us. And with the Broad Street Parkway finally opening up, I think we can do this.
Well, I didn't leave you much time to talk about your railroad option.
That's
So you
okay.
got
How
30
much time
seconds.
do we have? Well, I'm very pro passenger rail, as you know, and I will continue as mayor to make passenger rail happen. I'm convinced we will get it here in Nashua.
Okay, are you thinking that you could do it in a more staggered method rather than going all the way to Manchester?
I think we need to get it all the way to Manchester.
You do?
I do. Based on my conversations with the MBTA, they need it to go to Manchester in order for it to be worth their investment.
Well, they were not willing to bring it up to the border first.
I don't think so.
'Cause that would take care of their people. I mean,
Yeah, I think from a cost perspective, they
Yeah.
need it to go all the way to Manchester in order to justify the investment, because as you know, costs are incremental,
Yeah.
in
Oh,
nature.
yeah.
Once you start a project, the cost of extending the project is incrementally smaller than what it would be to start the project in the first place.
One other aspect, are you thinking of making this a transportation modality for the east-west traffic as well as the north-south traffic?
Absolutely. I mean, you know how difficult it is, getting east and west anywhere in New Hampshire.
Right.
Everything seems to run north and south, with the exception of 101 from Manchester to the seacoast. But I would love to see Nashua become more of a hub for east-west traffic as much as it is for north-south.
And obviously the exit off of Route 3.
Absolutely. Exit 36, having a southbound ramp would be huge for our city. And I've sat on a task force for
That
several years
supports all
now.
the other stuff.
It does. It does indeed.
Chris, it's been enjoyable. Good luck in your campaign. And I guess we'll see whether you get another interview after the election.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening in. And don't forget that the Nashua City Republican Committee meets in the second Thursday of every month at the Crown Plaza Hotel. Join us for interesting speakers. Thank you for listening.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.